This hot seat's going to be very, very in the weeds, but we'll do the best we can to explain eligibility, politics, and perhaps a court case coming up when the Oklahoma Secondary Schools Activities Association has decided to make some students, baseball players at Glencoe, ineligible. It's very in the weeds, but it's very important, especially for those who are interested in justice. Hannah, explain to us what happened today.
Sure. Well, I've been retained by Glencoe Public Schools to pursue all remedies and legal options pursuant to the false charges brought against Glencoe Public Schools. As Mr. Reeves will articulate, the goalpost has changed several times. First, they had alleged a possible link rule. Well, the coach at issue did not coach for 365 days, solely to make sure that the link rule did not apply in this case.
Let me ask you to explain what the link rule is.
Sure. Well, eligibility can be impacted to the extent there's an allegation that a coach has somehow recruited and is linked to those students and they follow a coach to a different school. It can impact your eligibility for a year to play. And not only was Mr. Reeves on behalf of Glencoe, but also the coach at issue here, Coach Schubert, they were in constant communication with the OSSAA to make sure that they were complying with all the rules and that their students wouldn't face any eligibility issues. The other accusation is that there has been recruiting because Mr. Reeves allows open gyms. So at Glencoe Public School, there is no local YMCA. Really, Glencoe allows its gym to be a place where the community can provide sports, to hang out, and there's nothing inappropriate about that. There's no written rules that an open gym is itself a recruiting event. And it's actually unconstitutional to apply unequal treatment under the law. I am currently aware of several other public schools that had open gyms this summer, recently, and are not being charged with recruiting by the OSSAA. So if the OSSAA genuinely thinks open gym nights are a recruiting event, then they need to pursue this claim against every single public school that participated in one, or they need to allow Glencoe to continue course, allow these boys to play, and allow them to continue on without fear of their school surviving past this event.
Let me take one step backwards. And the first time that I dealt with OSSAA was over a decade ago when a coach by the name of Barry Switzer was in here and on hot seat, was very angry with some issues there. People ask me about this particular issue. They go, who is OSSAA, Oklahoma Secondary Schools Athletic Association? Where did they come from? Who is the oversight? And why are they involved in something like this? Let me start with you, Hannah, on where they came from and why they have jurisdiction in something like this.
Well, the OSSAA is a creature of the legislator, and to the Oklahoma legislator's credit, there has been several attempts to further control and limit the OSSAA's ability to exceed its regulatory authority. So the Oklahoma State Constitution and the federal Constitution provide guidelines for all entities, governmental entities, administrative entities, which is the OSSAA, and the OSSAA operates outside those guardrails all the time, but this is a really good example of how they are operating outside their regulatory authority. And I'm hopeful when people hear about what's happening to Glencoe and they see this story, they will call their legislators and encourage them to continue to provide legislation to further limit OSSAA's ability to bully public schools and children who haven't done anything wrong. Mr. Reeves is going to elaborate on each child individually, but they all, every single one of them, their parents are willing to sign an affidavit that they haven't been recruited and they haven't violated any link rules. So the two rules at issue that we heard today are being investigated against us are patently not at issue. Glencoe has not violated a single OSSAA rule. And you're supposed to do an investigation, you're innocent until proven guilty. Well, they denied eligibility for these kids before an investigation was complete. Today, they state they're in the middle of an investigation. They ask us to come to the OSSAA, and essentially, they provided us no information. They asserted several allegations that were untrue, and they haven't provided any guidance on how these parents and kids are supposed to operate in this quasi-world where they're not sure if their kids are going to be able to play.
You're an attorney. You operate within the judicial system. Are there the similar safeguards and guardrails when you're in court that happens when you're before OSSAA?
No, these meetings are not open to the public. As you know, News 9 sent over a photographer for the meeting we had at the OSSAA today at 1:30, and they were denied entry into the meeting.
These are not, are they subject to Open Meeting Act?
That currently there is a ruling that they are not open to this. They're not subject to the Open Meeting Act. There is actually other ancillary case law that they are. I think that that's a gray area, but for what it's worth, when we file suit, you can yourself, any citizen watching this, can show up to the courthouse and hear us argue why this is unconstitutional. We are not hiding what our theory is, and we believe that sunshine is the best disinfectant.
So in your hearing today, that was a closed hearing.
It was, yes, sir.
Now, people just don't seem to have a really good grasp. I know I don't about where all this goes. After the hearing today, then what's next, and will that meeting be open?
So we are looking forward to the August 13th appeals hearing. There is a rule that you have to exhaust administrative remedies before filing suit. So we'll have to get through 3 administrative hearings before we file a lawsuit. We're hopeful the OSSAA does the right thing and grants eligibility so that we don't have to sue them, but we are not scared to fight for what is right. Glencoe has not done anything wrong, and they're willing to pursue remedies. But yes, a case in district court in Oklahoma is open to the public. It's open to the press. I believe that the OSSAA hearing should be open to the press, but it's not. They're not. There is no transparency there. They don't have to be transparent with Glencoe about what evidence they're relying on, much less the public and the press. So how can they be held accountable?
When you have, Superintendent Reeves, when you have a board meeting at Glencoe, is it open to the public?
Absolutely.
All right, except for executive session, right?
Correct.
Would this have been considered an executive session today?
It was actually set up by the OSSAA, so we were hopeful this was going to be a meeting where they granted us eligibility. It was not an official appeals hearing. They called Glencoe and wanted to have us come up. We were looking forward to hearing the results of their investigation, the evidence that they were relying on, the basis for their decision, and basically today they informed us they are just now starting an investigation, despite denying these kids eligibility. So it's clear to us that they are slow playing an investigation despite knowing how essential this eligibility issue is for Glencoe. And Mr. Reeves can speak on this, but this conduct could quite literally threaten Glencoe's ability to continue providing public education to the people who live in Glencoe. And every single person in Oklahoma, protected by the Oklahoma Constitution, has a right to public, free education. And the OSSAA's conduct in this case endangers Glencoe's ability to continue providing public education to the people who live nearby, and it would be a huge loss for the state of Oklahoma to allow the OSSAA to continue to bully small public schools for political reasons.
Who's on the OSSAA Board of Directors?
There are quite a few people on the OSSAA Board of Directors.
But individually, are they school administrators or coaches? I mean, who makes up that board?
Sure. It's my understanding that most of the people who make up the OSSAA board are school administrators, coaches, people involved in the athletic association, athletic directors. Those are the people who run the board. And for what it's worth, I'm not saying that those people are evil or have any bad intentions, but what they're allowing to happen here today is they have no solid evidence that Glencoe has done anything wrong. But they're making Glencoe go through this excruciatingly slow process where all these kids, these families, this school are in limbo. They are not listening to the urgent pleas by Glencoe and the parents and the students. They're completely ignoring the needs of the people at issue in this case, and I think that's unacceptable.
All right, so the individuals that are on this board, if they were having a hearing like this at their schools, it'd have to be an open meeting.
Yes, sir.
All right. To be fair, let me put up a slide exactly what the OSSAA said today. Basically, that's a fact finding and that there can be appeals, but it's a fact finding It was more than that. They actually did a ruling today. Is that correct?
They did not provide a ruling. They actually stated that they would not give us a decision today, which surprised us. We didn't set up this
And that does what to
meeting.
the eligibility of these students?
Well, it kind of leaves the eligibility up in the air. They haven't made a ruling that they are eligible. They haven't made a ruling that they're not eligible. And so that's why Mr. Reeves articulated that this is an urgent matter. We need urgent relief. And those pleas fell silent today.
Now, these students, so they're in limbo, according to your counsel, and so what happens to them next?
Well, whenever we talked to them, they did put out an initial ruling in an email to our athletic director and said, these students who attended an open gym are automatically ineligible. Since then, Mr. Jackson has contacted me and said they are allowed to practice now. So it's a huge delay for our baseball team because we didn't have baseball last fall. We're not a football school, so we have baseball, 2 of our 3 sports. We have a fall and spring baseball. So this is really impacting us. Right now, I went to practice yesterday. We had 8 kids, and that's with the kids that are allowed to practice. Now, we do have a couple that are injured that we anticipate getting back. But if these kids are ruled ineligible, there's no way we'll have a team again. And so what happens on this one-time transfer deal, when you have upperclassmen that look like, oh, we may not have a team, then they start leaving and going to neighboring districts. Now that we have some kids coming into our district, all of a sudden we've been targeted and now it's not being allowed. So they essentially ruled them ineligible based on what? I'm not really sure. They've called it link rule, they've called it recruiting. I've done my own investigation and I have not found that. I started calling the people that were listed in a certain email that was sent to the OSSAA. When I spoke to them, I found a lot of false things out there. So I called the OSSAA back and pointed that out. And what I really found interesting is when I had talked to these different schools, the OSSAA had never even contacted them. So if you're doing the investigation, the first thing I did when I read that email was I want to find out if that's true. Did my coach do these things? I started calling and finding out, in fact, it wasn't even true. OSSAA had not even reached out to these, and these kids were already deemed ineligible.
All right, Superintendent Reeves, if you could, people are going to be mystified by this. So in simple language, help me understand the issue here about an open gym, why supposedly it got the OSSAA's attention. It seems way in the weeds, but apparently is something that's got your program in an existential crisis right now. So help us understand precisely what is alleged, the wrongdoing that happened.
So they're trying to say that these kids are linked or were recruited because of having an open gym. We've had open gyms in Glencoe since I can go back to the mid-90s when I was a student there. I know the neighboring schools around have as well, and I've talked to superintendents. They're still going on. I don't want to list each one, but these are going on. It's not a recruiting event. We don't have anywhere else to go in town. The only thing in town is the school. So I typically go open the gym on Sundays, and kids of all ages come up, shoot baskets. Sometimes they scrimmage with their friends and these types of things. So how that is linked or recruited, I have no idea. They're grasping at straws here. They originally said these kids were recruited, so we're trying to figure out how were they recruited. I spoke with every parent. We knew some of these things could be said because Coach Schubert's past as an AAU coach. We had those conversations prior to ever hiring him. He did not coach any AAU this summer, so it's been an entire year, which we wanted him to be compliant with all the rules. So we've done everything that we could to make sure that these kids would be eligible. Those parents, anybody that contacted Coach Schubert, his answer to every one of them is, I can't speak to you, you'll have to call the superintendent at Glencoe Schools. So I spoke to them individually, allowed them, told them I have capacity for your student, I will take them on. The Board of Education, or the state board, they opened the transfer portal on June 1st for the new school year. So I directed each of those students, come June 1, if you want to be part of our schools, you need to put in the portal, and we'll start there. And each of those students in question did that.
You know, I keep waiting to hear that a car was offered or there was a bunch of cash offered, but this is, I think the average person is going to look at this and have difficulty understand the repercussions of a quote-unquote open gym. Let me just spring forward to August the 6th. So you're still in limbo. August 6th to the next hearing, the 13th is August. It seems as if this is a situation where that a deliberative body is maybe the way it's set up. I don't know, but it seems as if it's very, very in the weeds. Also, it doesn't appear to be transparent. Let me put it that way. Am I in the right pew on that one?
Yes, you absolutely are. There's a lack of transparency here, but I think the bigger issue is that the OSSAA knows that these issues are time sensitive. And so requiring people, families, schools to go through 3 appellate hearings before being able to file suit in district court means that by the time you can get relief from a judge, your school year is already over. Right? And most of these fights are about whether a kid is eligible in 1 year. And so the OSSAA knows if they can drag their feet, push out these appeals hearings, it delays your ability to file a lawsuit, and by the time you get the relief you wanted, the year's already over. And they use that they weaponize that against families, against schools, against children in this state. I believe that I went to law school to help people. And when children are being told that you have utilized your one-time transfer and now you cannot play your school year, it's shown in studies that kids who participate in extracurricular activities, sports especially, do better in school. The OSSAA knows that, and they are explicitly getting in the way of a child getting able to play sports during their school year and in the way of a parent's right to school choice. So I believe that the lack of transparency and the delay is intentional. It's caused to force schools and parents to agree to something when they didn't do anything wrong. And it's very clear to me today that the OSSAA was trying to force Mr. Reeves and the Glencoe School District to fire a coach who has done nothing wrong in order to get these kids eligibility. And that's what they do. They know that you can't file a lawsuit until you've had an appeals hearing, and that lawsuits are inherently slow. Justice works slow in lawsuits. And so they wait you out. They have more resources, they have more time, they have all the cards in their hands, and they know it. I think that's the bigger problem with the OSSAA in the state of Oklahoma.
What do you go do next week, Superintendent Reeves?
Well, we've got our first baseball game scheduled for August 11th. And like Hannah said, our appeals hearing is August 13th. We will already have to be canceling games. And then that puts the parents in limbo. Do I keep my kid here when they're not even been deemed eligible yet and we're already canceling games? What do I do now? Now they've missed practices at these other schools if they wanted to go to another, but they chose Glencoe, and we don't take that lightly. If they're going to choose us and put our faith in us, and I give them my word that we have room and capacity for them and we can provide them the things they need educationally, then that ought to be honored, and that should be a local choice. We have the room for them, we're taking them on, and there was no recruiting involved at all.
I didn't go to law school, but I know when somebody's alleging harm, where we're headed, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will say my clients are willing to pursue any and all remedies available to them. And I will say that if the OSSAA does not do the right thing for these kids, for their parents, for the school district, and for the state of Oklahoma, they are not afraid to file a lawsuit seeking emergency injunctive relief and challenging the constitutionality of the OSSAA on several grounds that we've discussed today. One of them being interfering with Oklahomans' right to a public education, another being providing unequal treatment under the law. But there are several things the OSSAA is doing that are unconstitutional, and Glencoe is willing to pursue any and all options to make sure that it proves to the families and kids it serves that it will not take this bullying standing down, and it will fight for every child at issue here.
Final question, August 6th, August 13th, will those be open to the public? Will the media, unlike today, be admitted into those hearings?
I anticipate the OSSAA will fight every aspect of transparency. I encourage the public to call the OSSAA and ask if they can be present at our appeals hearing. I encourage News 9 to send a reporter or a photographer to our appeals hearing. I will do everything I can to advocate to have them in the room for transparency. As I said, we believe sunshine is the best disinfectant, but I would be surprised if the OSSAA allows transparency, because then it would be very clear to the public, the media, and all people in Oklahoma how unfair this conduct is and how little evidence they're relying on.
Attorney Hannah Witten, Superintendent Jay Reeves from Glencoe. This is Friday afternoons are becoming a big news day around here. So 2 weeks in a row on education issues. Thank you for both being here.
Thank you for caring about real issues, Scott. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for watching Hot Seat. The extended version, we go much more in detail of what the situation is between the OSSAA and Glencoe schools and attorney Hannah Witten. All you got to do is go there right now to see the full interview at news9.com and news6.com and follow me at Mitchell Talks.